Well, friends, we now have Volume 1 of Special Counsel Jack Smith's report documenting Donald Trump's election interference crimes, his attempts to steal the 2020 presidential election, his determination to undermine the express will of the American voters. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirschner here. So friends, we now have Volume 1 of Jack Smith's report. And what I'd like to start with is some of the new reporting that summarizes just some of Special Counsel's findings and conclusions. And then I want to focus on just 5 paragraphs of a letter that Jack Smith authored and delivered to the Attorney General about his, Smith's, investigations and prosecutions of Donald Trump. And the reason I want to focus, just for today, on those 5 paragraphs, and I'll admit I have not read the entire report, it is lengthy, and I'm still working my way through it, but the reason I want to start with those 5 paragraphs is because I have already seen corporate media focusing quite a bit on Donald Trump's lies that he posted in response to Special Counsel's work and Special Counsel's report. So let's talk about 5 paragraphs of the truth, to just try to level the playing field a little bit. Friends, if I can digress for just a minute, my undergraduate degree is in journalism. Now, I don't pretend that I spent much time as a practicing journalist. I decided to go to law school and become a career prosecutor. But I had the extraordinary good fortune of learning the history of journalism and the practice of journalism, the craft of journalism from one of the greats, Professor Clark Mollenhoff. And you know what Professor Mollenhoff never taught his students? That fair and balanced reporting, that responsible journalism involves, digging for and reporting the truth, and also reporting the incessant lies that the wrongdoer spews trying to undermine the truth, giving them equal time. So with that in mind, we're actually going to focus on 5 paragraphs of the truth from Jack Smith, and I'm not even going to read Donald Trump's lies that he posted in response to the release of Jack Smith's report. Let's start first with the new reporting. This from the BBC. Headline: Trump would have been convicted if not elected, DOJ report says. And that article begins, President-elect Donald Trump would have been convicted of illegally trying to overturn the result of the 2020 presidential election, which he lost, if he had not successfully been reelected in 2024, according to the man who led U.S. government investigations into him. The evidence against Trump was, quote, sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial, Special Counsel Jack Smith wrote in a partially released report. Trump hit back by saying Smith was deranged and his findings were fake. And Trump also called Jack Smith lame brain, which is not surprising given Donald Trump's limited vocabulary and his juvenile instincts, with apologies to juveniles. It's all my editorial addition. The article continues. Trump was accused of pressuring officials to reverse the 2020 result, knowingly spreading lies about election fraud, and seeking to exploit the riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. He denied all wrongdoing. Smith says in the report he stands fully behind the merits of bringing the prosecution and the strength of the case. He went on to say It was only the fact that the U.S. Constitution forbids the prosecution of a sitting president that ended it, meaning the case or the prosecution. Quote, but for Mr. Trump's election in 2024 and imminent return to the presidency, the Office of Special Counsel assessed that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial. The report, which was released by the Department of Justice to Congress, gives further detail on why Smith pursued the case and ultimately closed it. It justifies the case against Trump by accusing him of unprecedented efforts to unlawfully retain power through threats and encouragement of violence against his perceived opponents. Running through Mr. Trump's criminal efforts were election fraud claims he knew to be false, it says. The report details significant challenges faced by investigators, including Trump's use of social media to target witnesses, courts, and Justice Department employees. Denying the case was politically motivated, Smith says, the claim from Mr. Trump that my decisions as a prosecutor were influenced or directed by the President Joe Biden administration or other political actors is, in a word, laughable. Now, friends, as I said, let's just look at 5 paragraphs from Jack Smith's 4-page letter, cover letter, that was part of the report that he transmitted to the Attorney General. 4 pages of truth and accuracy and credible information. To make prosecutorial determinations, my office, the special counsel's office, gathered relevant evidence and examined whether that evidence established violations of federal criminal law. In doing so, I was guided by the principles of federal prosecution, a series of considerations designed to promote the fair and even-handed application of the law. As set forth in my report, after conducting thorough investigations, I found that, with respect to both Mr. Trump's unprecedented efforts to unlawfully retain power after losing the 2020 election and his unlawful retention of classified documents after leaving office, the principles compelled prosecution. Indeed, Mr. Trump's cases represented ones, quote, in which the offense was the most flagrant, the public harm the greatest, and the proof the most certain. And there Jack Smith is quoting The Federal Prosecutor by Robert H. Jackson, former Supreme Court Justice from the 1940s and 50s, former Solicitor General, former United States Attorney General, and the chief United States prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials. Jack Smith's letter continues. As directed by the principles, I made my decision in these cases without regard to Mr. Trump's political association, activities, or beliefs, or the possible personal or professional consequences of a prosecution for me or any member of my office. Quote from the Justice Manual, the likelihood of an acquittal due to unpopularity of some aspect of the prosecution or because of the overwhelming popularity of the defendant or his cause, or the converse, were not factors in my prosecutive decisions. My office also adhered at all times to the Department of Justice's policy against interfering in elections. As a former chief of the department's Public Integrity Section, it was important to me, as it is to you, that we adhere to both the letter and spirit of this policy. I can assure you that neither I nor the prosecutors on my team would have tolerated or taken part in any action by our office for partisan political purposes. Throughout my service as special counsel, seeking to influence the election one way or the other, or seeking to interfere in its outcome, played no role in our work. My office had one North Star: to follow the facts and the law wherever they led. Nothing more and nothing less. While I relied greatly on the counsel, judgment, and advice of our team, I wanted to be clear that the ultimate decision to bring charges against Mr. Trump was mine. It is a decision I stand behind fully. To have done otherwise on the facts developed during our work would have been to shirk my duties as a prosecutor and public servant. After nearly 30 years of public service, that is a choice I could not abide. It is equally important for me to make clear that nobody within the Department of Justice ever sought to interfere with or improperly influence my prosecutorial decision-making. The regulations under which I was appointed provided you, the Attorney General, with the authority to countermand my decisions, but you did not do so. Nor did you, the Deputy Attorney General, or any members of your staff ever attempt to improperly influence my decisions as to whether to bring charges against Mr. Trump. And to all who know me well, the claim from Mr. Trump that my decisions as a prosecutor were influenced or directed by the Biden administration or other political actors is, in a word, laughable. Last paragraph, friends, and this one really resonates with me for reasons that might become obvious. While we were not able to bring the cases we charged to trial, I believe the fact that our team stood up for the rule of law matters. I believe the example our team set for others to fight for justice without regard for the personal costs matters. The facts, as we uncovered them in our investigation, as set forth in my report, matter. Experienced prosecutors know that you cannot control outcomes. You can only do your job the right way for the right reasons. I conclude our work confident that we have done so, and that we have met fully our obligations to the department and to our country. You know, friends, for those of us who spent our entire careers investigating and prosecuting without fear or favor, prosecuting based solely and exclusively on the facts and the law without regard to politics or political affiliation, for those of us who spent our lives enforcing the rule of law, upholding the rule of law, that last paragraph I read, like justice, matters. Friends, we'll be talking more about Jack Smith's report in the days and probably the weeks to come. But for now, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.